Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It's good to be with you here on, I think it's Thursday already. Good gosh. Well, I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon. The Power Lunch is here to bring you CEOs, thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing amazing work in the world, who can help us get better at what we do. And that's the whole point of the show. Now, it can be interactive. If you get on LinkedIn Live, if you get on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere where we broadcast, you can interact with us. We monitor the feeds during the program. And so ask your questions, because that's, again, why we're here, so that you can get to the answers you need to make decisions and be better. Now, if you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit from the conversations, and it doesn't hurt that other people find out about the show and we grow a little bit. So I appreciate that. If you like the program, please share it. Now, today we're going to talk about life transitions, that they don't need to keep you stuck. They don't need to bog you down. We're going to talk about that today, and how you can sort of get out of that rut, or that midlife malaise, or whatever you want to call it, that a lot of people experience. I've got somebody that I think you probably know. If not, you're going to know really well after today. I've got Hilary DeCesare.
DeCesare.
Sorry.
DeCesare.
I have trouble with the English language. And I had that written. I even had that written down.
It's a tough one.
She's an award-winning entrepreneur and CEO of the ReLaunch Company, helping people as a transitional strategy coach, relaunching people to new heights in their life, their careers, and their relationships by her step-by-step approach, which is called the ReLaunch Effect. She's been on ABC's The Secret Millionaire. She's been featured in outlets like CBS, ABC, Fox, Huffington Post, and others. And I'm delighted to have her here. Hilary, welcome.
Thank you so much, Rhett.
Thank you. So how are you doing? I mean, you actually had COVID. I hope that's not a secret.
Not anymore. No, I'm kidding.
Oops.
No.
How are you doing? How is the family doing? And I mean, we've got a lot going on. COVID, the social justice issues. How are you kind of coping with this time?
There is a ton going on, right? I mean, everywhere you look, and I'm hanging in there like the rest of us. And fortunately, this is my business, right? Relaunching during transitional time. So I've had, I've been the lucky one where I can actually use what I teach on myself and on my family, and giving them the tools to be able to circumvent these types of worldly issues, that hit, at every level. There's not a person out there right now that I have met that is not going through some type of relaunch in their life right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Why do we get to this age and all of a sudden face this sort of midlife? It's not really I don't want to say crisis, but why do we get to this age that, and I'm not going to mention ages, I'm not going to do that, but I've got a little gray hair. Why do we get to this sort of midlife and feel like there's something missing? Or I mean, you've worked with a lot of people in this space. Why does that happen?
So first off, midlife is, unfortunately, it can really be at any stage, at any age of your life, because you don't know when you're going to have to push your cart, right? You don't know when it's done. And so when you look at the average expectancy of life, you hear 78, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh. So midlife is a lot younger than what we traditionally think, where you say, all right, 40s, 50s. People are coming to the ReLaunch Company now that are in their 20s, that are in their 30s, they're in their 70s. It crosses over. And the whole concept is really around what is this transition? And it means that at some point you're going through something where it could be a change in your life. It could be a job change. It could be, you might be getting laid off. You might be, ending a relationship, or it could even be starting a relationship, and there's unsteady ground. And so when we start talking about what you were about to say, which is midlife crisis,
right.
It's this point in your life where there's instability. But we have transitions in all areas of our life, right? You might be going to college. You might be heading up to your first job. You might be getting married. These are all transitions. And I refer to the point between when you are making a decision to do something, or a decision. Unfortunately, these days, a lot of jobs are being lost, or you're having to figure out new ways of revenue in your company. I think that it's that point when there is a change that has to be made. And then that the end result of where you're going, or sometimes you don't know where you're going, is that point B. And it's the interspace of the A to the B transition. A lot of times I call it hell in the hallway, where you don't know which door to open. You don't know which one's going to be that the best for you. And so when you start thinking of midlife, and you are getting to the point where, as you said, you still have kids in high school, you're going to soon have your kids going off to college, and then you're going to be faced with this idea and concept of you're going to be an empty nester. Well, there's also this point that we reach that we start asking ourselves, have I done everything I'm here on this earth to do? Have I left my legacy in place? Have I done all these incredible things that when I was young, I said I would do? And when you start realizing, that moment of the fear creeps in, right? That, oh my gosh, I haven't done it. Or there's
that life list is still really long.
and life is, you're thinking, my gosh, I have so much more living I want to do. That's when that feeling of overwhelm really hits. And that's when you start to go into that almost a panic mode. And it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be that way at all. And that's why you have to lean into something like, I'm going to instead have a midlife relaunch instead of a crisis, because who wants a crisis? I mean, we're every day there's a new crisis. We don't need to get another one.
How do you, so that seems to me like a mindset issue then, more than anything. And maybe I'm wrong, but how do you keep from feeling that overwhelm? Because you must have a system, I'm guessing, that helps people sort of master that mindset, or that frame of mind, so that it's not overwhelming, and you can make a plan to accomplish those things that you want to accomplish. Is that sort of is that how you work with people?
You know what? Mindset is everything. I mean, it is. And you have to realize that the thoughts that you have in your head are your choice. You have the ability. The thought comes into your head. And when that thought comes into your head, you are given a great, awesome decision. And that decision, which empowers you, is to accept it as a negative or create a positive. And so I have a fabulous mentor of mine that says, you are not your thoughts, you're the thinker of your thoughts. Yeah. And if you go with that, if you continue to move down, we say it's your choice. And having choice in life gives you that power. And so it's interesting. I was flipping through your biography and your kind of your life story, and I read that you have this book 1 Million Frogs, and we actually have a connection there, if you can believe that. And I started to read a little of it yesterday. And there is, we have a summer cabin that was built 85 years ago, and about 4 years ago, it unfortunately had a gas leak, and the thing blew up. And it blew up 15 minutes after my parents, my brother, my son left. And we had to go through this process of rebuilding, and where none of us even think about the materialistic side that we lost. We look at, oh my gosh, what if, right? What if 15 minutes before they had been in there? So it puts things into perspective very quickly. But we went back to this, the million frogs, I'm getting there. But we went into this rebuild mode. And we were, we have to rebuild, we have to rebuild. And a lot of times people are going through this right now in their entrepreneurial lifestyles. They're trying to figure out, how do you rebuild when so much seems lost at this point? Revenue seems lost, business seems lost, people seem, everybody is having this feeling of loss. Well, we went and we started to, put the plans together. And just as we're about to start building, we get stopped. The project gets completely stopped because there is an endangered frog called the yellow-footed frog that now lives right around our property. And so they said, this is the Forest Service, and how we were going to start building this. They said, I'm sorry, you can't build. And we said, but wait, we have to be able to build this. And they said, well, the only way you're going to do it is if you don't move outside of the footprint of the house past 18 inches. So imagine what that would look like. You're trying to build a house and you only have 18 inches, a foot and a half that you can step on. And so it became this big challenge. And initially, of course, our mindset went to, it's never going to happen. All the negatives around this, the sadness, the gloom, the depression. Right. And then it was at that moment that we chose a different way, a different thought, that, you know what, we're going to be living with this yellow-footed frog, and we're going to make this work. And we're going to, we came up with some very creative ideas. I mean, if you can see, imagine a rowboat bringing over major equipment, through the lake. I mean, the whole thing. But it was a mindset. It was a shift. And as soon as we leaned into, we're still going to do this, we're going to make it happen, that's when everything changed. So when I'm coaching entrepreneurs, I actually say, okay, when something comes up, there's your frog. That's your frog. So what are you going to do about it? Yeah. So I laugh when I read the opening of your book, 1 Million Frogs. Oh yeah.
You know that well.
I know it well. And so do entrepreneurs, right? There are right now, it seems like, the frogs have gotten out. There's one obstacle after the next.
They're loose. Yeah, they're out there. And you face them every day. And I really appreciate that story. And in terms of just, you can choose to either let it stop you or figure out a way to make it work. And I think that's what I love about entrepreneurs typically, is that is the mindset. It's no doesn't register very well with a lot of entrepreneurs. And so I appreciate that story very, very much. What you talk a lot about in your work, life transitions don't need to keep you stuck. So what are some ways, aside from the mindset, that can help you sort of think about and plan out where you want to go next and what you want to do next and what you want to accomplish next? Are there some tactics or some tools that you use to help people do that?
My mind is spinning right now. Which direction should I go? There's so many, so many great ones. But given that we have a short amount of time, I'd like to just talk a little bit about what does relaunch even stand for. And if you just keep the word relaunch, that song, respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Mm-hmm. I kind of think of it like that when you're talking about relaunch. Okay. So have that song going through your head, and it gives you the motivation. Because as you said, entrepreneurship, it can be It can be a grind. It can, you got to go deep. You got to have grit. As you said, you have to have common sense, courage, and persistence. And yep. I'd throw, that even to the point of you got to realize what's right in front of you. So what I always say the R stands for is this idea of reimagine. Mm-hmm. Reimagine exactly, crystal clear what you want the company to be. How are the feelings around it, right? What's the end result for you? Not the big paycheck, not the big payout, not when your company gets sold, because what's happened is I work with a lot of people who've sold their company, who've made hundreds of millions of dollars. And at that point, they got the big check, but they're not happy within because they had the wrong outcome, that they didn't think about the feelings around what are they really going for. So when they get it, they're like, I've got the money now, but I'm still not happy. So reimagine, take this opportunity right now. And this could cross over not just in your work, but in your life. And then the second one is your energy. So the E is, what energy are you bringing? Is it a high level of energy? Is it that, the level, the vibrancy, the frequency of love? Or is it that like blame and, oh, this isn't working for me? Because they're very different. And when you start to attract at the level of higher level, those are the type of people that are going to be coming in for you, supporting you. Then you've got the L. And I always love this one because it's first and foremost, you got to go back to what you love. You started the business. You have to understand love is at the base of everything that you're doing. Again, it goes back to that energy, but it's right. Loving yourself and being gentle with yourself as you go through this process, because it is so easy to beat yourself up. Should have, could have, would have, didn't. Why is this happening? Oh my gosh. Instead, flip the script and look at it from, all right, I'm going to be gentler with myself. I'm going to say, you know what? I can still do this. I can make this dream happen. I can get this company profitable. All right, then we've got A, which is this acknowledge. Acknowledge where you are today and how much grit, I mentioned that before, how much grit it took you to get here, to be able to say, I'm running this company. I'm a part of this company. We're making this happen. Acknowledge that and give yourself a pat on the back, because how often do we just keep driving through one thing after the next? And so many people right now are throwing out the word pivot. I got to pivot. I got to pivot. I got to pivot. No, what you need to do is relaunch. You need to follow these steps and really think about why you're going back and doing what you're doing. The next one is never. And this is a big one. The N is never doubt yourself. Never doubt yourself, because you have all the resources within you. And, you hear often about imposter syndrome. Well, if you are where you are right now, you've done something right. There's not one person who has run a company for their first time that knows everything. Not one, because nobody had ever done it, right? So don't doubt yourself. And then the C is really about this idea of competence. Competence breeds confidence. Okay, so if there's something that you don't know, go out and learn it. If you feel that something is holding you back, I don't have that, I'm not really good at that. I know that when I first started my companies, I hadn't really taken a lot of business classes in college. I was pre-med. I had a psych major. And I all of a sudden got, involved in the business world, worked at Oracle for 10 years. And I had to learn business while I was doing the job. Well, then I started running a company, and it was like every day I was learning something. I had a journal that I'm like, this is what I'm learning. This is what I still need to learn. But go and focus on, if there's something that you feel is holding you back, lean into it and really do that. And then the H is, you have to believe your happiness is here. It is within you. And if you are miserable, if you're doing the grind, if you're not like at a level where you're, actually enjoying the process, then don't do it anymore, because it will never happen. It's like jamming that square peg into the circle. It's never going to be in alignment until you on the inside are in alignment. And there you have it. That's like, I feel like I could sing it right now.
You nailed that. You nailed it. You didn't have to. That's perfect. A follow-up to that is, you talk a lot about fear, and the opposite of fear being love. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So when you think about vibration, and I just want to go back, and if you have a thought, your thought creates this feeling. And then the feeling, we've all had that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting chills right now. So that's a vibration in your body that leads to a high level of a frequency. So think about it, thoughts to feelings to vibrations to frequency. And when you're operating at a high level of frequency, which high level frequency is love, love is the highest level, love is where peace is, then you attract this idea of likes attract likes. It's when you're meditating, and you're meditating not just within yourself, but within the collective. And it's funny because I have a membership group called ReLaunch Collective. And why is that so important? It's important when you start getting the same people that are feeling and operating at the same level together, because when that happens, then you get flow. And when you're in flow, you're in alignment. And that's when all the magic happens. And so I really want to make sure that people realize that if you have that person in your organization, when you walk into your meeting, and trust me, I've had boards where I've come in and, I can just feel it. I can feel, one of the board members that was just like, the energy was just so bad in the room. And the first thing that I tried to do was increase the energy to a higher level, because if you're operating at that low level, you're never going to get anything done. It's going to be combative. We talk about gender intelligence, and my God, that's where it starts to happen. Everyone operating at a different level. So this is so important to be thinking, come at everything with the idea that you want to operate at the highest level, not the lowest level, not the fear level where that's what you're going to be bringing in. Because who wants to run your business? Who wants to be in a relationship with you? Nobody.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's a great way to a great take on it. But why do we let fear do that to us? Is it easier? I guess it's because it's easier.
So unfortunately, when you think about how we have evolved, and you think about the, back in, and I always hear about the saber tiger, and how all of a sudden, you're on the defense, like, oh my gosh, what's around the next corner? I better be really heightened. And we have thoughts in our head, 75,000 thoughts a day. And a majority of them are negative. And here's the thing, when you come home after a day of work, or if one thing bad happens and the rest was all great, what are you going to focus on? That one bad thing. In your business as an entrepreneur, if you have one thing that didn't go right, we all of a sudden fixate on that. It's wired in us. And so you have to, just like developing, like you're not going to go out and all of a sudden run 5 miles. You're going to, your muscles, you're going to build your muscles up. And that's the same thing of getting out of this negative zone. When you start to realize, and I mean, sometimes you just have to be like, carry a pad of paper around. And as you're coming, throughout your day, you're just starting to notice you're becoming aware of, wow, I'm starting to think negative again. And what you have to be able to do is have this awareness that you're doing it. And then you have this understanding with yourself that, okay, I know I'm doing it now, but then you have the choice to change it. And so you can't expect your life. And I work with a lot of people that are now at the level where they want to have it all. They want to have the most incredible life. But as we're talking, I realize that they're missing it because they're trying to go from where they are to loving their life, to loving their relationship, to loving their work. But they're bypassing they're bypassing the themselves first, like their job, like their partner. That's what's missing. We try to, everyone is out there, all these gurus, all these people are saying, love yourself, love. And it's like, sometimes we got to take one step back before we can get to that place of truly being in that love space. And it takes awareness. It takes acknowledgement, and you have to learn. It's a learning that we have to go through. But let me tell you, when you learn the secrets behind it, I mean, it transforms. The word transforms is, we talk about it with transitions to transformations. And you can't have transformations unless you're willing to have that time where you're, in that hallway, trying to figure out the door that's going to be the right one. And that takes work.
Takes a lot of work. And I love that you got to like first. I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. I mean, this seems like that's logical, right? That's the logical first step. Because if you don't like, you're not going to love. I don't think.
Well, I think about we're all entrepreneurs at heart, right? So we want to take the fastest approach to success. So why go into when we could jump over it, hurdle over it, and say, work. You may be at that love state for a little bit, but darn, you're going to bounce right back. And that's where this whole idea comes in. You gotta like before you love.
Fair enough. I think you're right. One of the things that I think I find surprising in your work is that you talk about personal branding, and what part does that play in your identity of the future? Like, I mean, because I think that's what, in essence, what we're talking about in some ways is, particularly if you're in the stage where your kids are gone, maybe you've retired, maybe you're thinking about a second career, third career. And it seems to me that sort of a lot of this results of who are you now? And then who am I now? I was an attorney. I was a college professor. I was a teacher. I was a whatever. And now I'm just Rhett. And And so I think how does personal branding, what does that even mean at that stage?
So it is one of the steps. We have 7 steps in the ReLaunch Effect, and it's our methodology. And rebranding is so important because if you think about it, as you said, we become so defined by what we have done. And for many of us, we didn't choose what we did along the way. Many of us, it just kind of either fell into our lap, or we just, we assumed the role, right? We all of a sudden were a daughter, a son. Then we went off and we were a student. And then we go off and we get our first job. And as you said, it could be, anything, right? Whatever that, sales rep, right. Whatever it is. And then you get married, and then you're the Mr. to the Mrs. or the Mrs. to the Mr. And then you might lose a job. And here's the thing, in rebranding, what we're really looking at is relaunching your identity. And the identity is not the labels that you put on yourself. It's Who do you really want to be when, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, when you get there? Who do you want to be? How would that person feel? What would they believe? How would they be acting? Because once you figure out that whole idea of how you want to feel, then you know, okay, wait, oh my gosh, I am in the process of rebranding my entire self. And we go through we have something called the personal power pitch. And it's very similar to an elevator pitch where everyone is like, oh, this is my product, this is what I do, and I can tell it to you in 30 seconds, 2 minutes. Well, when I say to you, tell me about you. If you're in a circle, or if you're in a table, and if you're out at a business dinner and, oh, we're just going to go around and introduce ourselves, people get that like pit in their stomach. Why is that? It's because their identity is, I'm not really sure, it's on shaky ground. So what we want to do is get your identity of where you're going at this point. And I'm working with a gal right now who is 26 years old, and she is a superstar at her company. It's a very large corporation. And yet she is unstable. She is, it's the handsome guy who has no self-esteem. It's the person that, is just shaky underneath. So in rebranding, we make sure that we start at the root. We start at the base. You can't build a house if you only have sand. What do you need to create cement? You got to add the glue. So what's the glue that is really where you want to go? What's that identity?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is that something that you find in your work that a lot of people are struggling with?
I would say 98% of people, when they really get down to it, they are caught up in the identity, and they're living their life as if they're like looking at it. They're not in their life. And once you start to live the identity that you want as the husband or the wife or the employer or the CEO, when you start to actually embrace your values, what do you stand for? I can't tell you how many CEOs I work with, and I put them through a few assessments just to give me kind of an idea of, what's the best way to coach them. But as I'm doing it, I find so many times the values that they are living by are not core values. Somebody else's values. Their mom, their dads, their teachers, their employers. It's not who they are. So there's, again, we talked earlier about flow and alignment. So I think that there is something that is super critical in what happens when you reach 40s and 50s, especially, is that there's this moment where you kind of look at yourself and say, who am I? Who am I really? And then, is this really who I want to be?
Yeah. I find, and I do a lot of executive coaching, a lot of business coaching, and I often find that there is a lack of a sort of a personal mission statement. They've had one for their business, and they've got all these, they got a business plan, and they've got all this here. But when it comes to their life and who they are and what drives them and what their values are and what they often don't have a personal mission statement. And I find that that's a place often in my coaching that I have to start, because if you're not, and honestly, I don't see how you can have a business plan and a personal, and then not have a personal plan, and so, and often those things are sometimes not in sync. And so I agree with you. I think people are often drifting there and searching there, and really it's about focusing in on and creating a plan, a personal mission statement of your values, and then creating your life plan kind of around that, or what you want to accomplish around that.
I can say something to that, is that, a lot of people, you should have it. I for a long time did not have it. I was running a high-tech company, security company for kids. I was working to the bone. I had 3 little kids at home. I was constantly off raising money for this company. And I was not thinking about my personal values, my personal plan, my own identity. I was Hilary, the CEO of this company, and I'm going to make it happen. And in doing so, what happened was I wasn't happy doing anything. I was failing miserably in my personal life. I was failing. It was during a time of a divorce. I was failing at being a good mother to these kids. I was feeling like I was, letting them down. I was missing those key events at their school. And I wasn't, I was so into the work aspect, the company aspect, that I was actually creating this sickness within me. And I ended up, with melanoma. I mean, it just, you have to do it. And for so many, it's again going back to awareness. So many CEOs don't even think about it. It's not even on their radar that there should be this personal plan as well. Because if we really look at, balance of life, which I don't think exists, but that's a common, phrase, yeah. You really have to be looking at harmony. You have to be looking at the different quadrants. And if you think of it as a stool, the way that I kind of lay it out in my own business is the legs of the 3-legged stool are your life, your business, your relationships. And the seat is that concept of love. And again, without that seat, those 3 stools, those 3 legs would collapse. They wouldn't stand up. And that's really what your life plan is all about.
You brought up a time, go back to when you had your tech company. What got you out of that? Because I think I experienced a lot of what you experienced with the toy company. And the lifestyle is intoxicating. I was flying all over the world, busy, making things happen. But how did you get yourself out of that phase and that because that's not easy. And so, and is that what drives you today to do what you're doing?
It absolutely is what drives me, because I completely lost it. I completely was so intoxicated, as you said, addicted to the rush of the business of doing. And I got to tell you, what finally happened.
And winning it.
Yeah.
Doing it well.
Absolutely. And what finally stepped in was the universe. The universe telling me, if you keep going down this path, you may not be here. And so what happened is that I had a board member who ended up doing some really, crazy things. And he basically took the company down. And from it, he ended up in federal prison for 3 years. And it was just like, everything, the perfect storm, right? Everything started to happen where it was out of my control. I didn't even have control anymore around what was going on. It was so out of control, which, if you think about it, when I was thinking I was in control, I was so out of control. So it all came to a head. And at that point, I reassessed and I thought, oh my gosh, of all the experiences in my life, of all the things that I've been able to accomplish, what is my purpose now? And sure, you could have all the greatest success stories, but let me tell you, you add success stories with the true, the things that allow you to have the grit, the things that really define you, that shape you, those moments of like deep darkness. That's when you start to understand who you are and where you need to go.
Yeah, I totally get that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Briefly talk about it. The last thing I wanted to ask you is talk about the company a little bit, how people can get in touch talk about the help or the program that you do just a little bit, so people get kind of an idea of how you could help them sort of relaunch their life.
Absolutely. So we have the website is the ReLaunchCo.com. We also have on there the ability to set up a 20-minute phone conversation just to see if this is the right opportunity for you to relaunch. And there's something on the site that says it's a free giveaway, and it is you dating you. And first blush, you might be like, what? Hilary, what are you talking about, you dating you? But it gets to the point of you better know who you are. And you could very simply phrase that out and say, you hiring you, but you being with you. And so definitely go check that out. And then I'm pleased to say that just recently I launched my podcast. It's called The Silver Lined Relaunch. And you can definitely check that out as well. So lots of different ways to hear more about it.
Fantastic. And I do thank you for your time today. Thank you for spending some time with us here on Power Lunch. You can actually check out the schedule at powerlunch.live. Got a great lineup for you next week. Tomorrow we have Marshall Goldsmith, and we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have a great day. Thank you, Hilary, for being with us.
Thanks so much, Rhett.